Hi, everybody. Joe Chaffee, Joe Rayo, Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2020. And woke up to a bit of a surprise this morning, didn't we?
Did you blink? Because if you blinked, you missed it.
Yeah, I know. It just happened so quickly.
Hey, Joe
Uh,
Chaffee,
Joe Rayo, Joe and Joe Weather Show
Oh, I'm sorry.
on
Hang
this
on.
Wednesday, the
Joe,
27th.
quiet. All right. Back to you, Joe.
I think there's a way you can mute that beforehand, but
No, there isn't. At least that's I have not been able to figure out a way, but
uh,
nonetheless.
all right. Well, we'll figure. We'll see. If
Start again.
we can see if we can rectify this.
Did you
Oh,
blink? If you blinked, you missed it.
right, exactly. Tropical storm Bertha formed from that low off the Florida coast that moved fairly quickly to off the South Carolina coast. When I looked at the radar this morning, Joe, it was just like this really well-developed ball of convection, and I pulled up the surface map in OBS and saw buoy wind gusts of up to 50 miles an hour. So I was kind of surprised when I saw those buoy gusts that they didn't just go ahead and upgrade it right away, but they got around to it at about what 9 o'clock or so, and then it went inland at around 11 o'clock. So yeah, this is probably the storm last year. I think it was in Texas, Imelda, if I remember correctly, which actually I believe the name's been retired because of all the flooding rains that it caused. They made that a tropical storm after the low actually went inland of the coast because they were getting all these winds of gale force all over the place. So uh, it's about as close as you can come to naming a storm before you don't name it, and they did. And it's Bill Goodman sent me some stats here. Let me see with regards to made tropical storms because we've got two named storms this month. Let's see. So, 20. This is courtesy of Jim Cosin at NOAA. He looked at a quick look at the hurricane data of years where there were two named storms prior to the official start of the hurricane season. 2016 had Alex in January and Bonnie in May.
Right.
2012 had Alberto and Beryl in May, so there was a year where we had two named storms. In that year, of course, we had Sandy, which was the 19th storm of the season. 1951 had Tropical Storm. They they didn't name them at that time. Tropical Storm 1 in January and Hurricane Abel in May. 1908 had Hurricane 1 in March, Hurricane 2 in May, and Hurricane 2 in May made landfall on eastern Long Island, believe it or not. 1887 had two tropical storms in May. And let's see. And of course, prior to the 1970s, we likely would have missed a few if they never impacted lands or ships. We also have the question of whether the 1987 to 95 no subtropical storms dictum, while Bob Burpee was the National Hurricane Center director, would affect this history. I didn't know that. I guess they were not allowed to have subtropical storms between 1987 and 1995.
It's amazing, isn't it?
What was
That,
the? I didn't know this. What was the logic behind it?
I don't know. It seems like they're putting the finger of blame, if you can call it that, on one particular director of the National Hurricane Center, and that it have obviously they existed before 1987 and they existed after 1995. But in that time frame when this gentleman was the head of the Hurricane Center, he must have put out an edict saying no subtropical
Well,
storms.
did they did they not identify them as subtropical and just identify them just strictly as tropical and name them, or did they just ignore them? Now, those are there's two different issues here. So, not sure whether they just ignored them completely or whether they said, well, it's subtropical, but we're naming it.
Well, I know you and I are both from the old school. It still surprises me when they actually attach a name to a subtropical system. You used to go through all of the, pulling of hair and checking all of the observations. Did it make it the tropical storm? Does it have the characteristics of a trop? But now we got subtropical systems. to get into
Well,
the States.
I have mixed feelings on that. Most times with these subtropical storms, they most often do become eventually all tropical. It's at some point, not all of them, but most of them do. And I guess maybe they look at it as, what, it might be confusing if we have it as a subtropical, but we don't put a name attached to it. And then they come back later on and they say, well, maybe it wasn't post analysis, it was tropical. I don't know. It's not my job. That's their job. It's above my pay grade. So,
So what
uh,
you're saying is that aside from this year, the only two other years that had any kind of a named, I mean, obviously they didn't name tropical systems before 1951 or whatever, but I mean, the only times that we had in the month of May more than one tropical weather system was 2012 and all the way back in 1887 in the month of May now.
yeah, let me just double check what he said here. So, um, uh, right, because 51 had one was in January, one was in May. 1908,
Wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
1908, one in March, one in May, and
Right.
that one went over eastern Long Island. So yeah, so 2012 had Beryl and Alberto, two tropical storms, both in May. 16 had Bonnie in May and Alex in January, and then we've had May storms, every year since.
Right.
Yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. So anyway, it's inland. It's raining in the Carolinas. It's raining mostly in the western half of North Carolina, parts of northern South Carolina, and in western Virginia. So Johnny Questland might get something out of this. I'm going to bring the satellite loop up and bring it full screen. It's kind of uh, you can sort of pick it out here on the loop. It's separate. It's somewhat embedded now in that whole mess that's going on to the west of it with the upper low that's back over in the lower Mississippi Valley. But that's sort of steering this northward. It also will bring those rains with it are not coming here. They're going to stay pretty much western Pennsylvania and then maybe move up into western New York as this thing gradually weakens. So we don't have to really worry about it. I kind of, I guess, I could have thrown in the risk of a brief shower tomorrow. Originally, I had it. I just kind of sort of side mentioned it today. Otherwise, it's just going to be another a day of clouds, and whether that start off with clouds and does it burn off? Does it not burn off? I don't know. I think there might be more clouds around tomorrow than what we've seen over the last couple of days.
Well, I think the moisture from Bertha injecting, as it goes over land and it gets kind of wrung out, so to speak, that moisture either gets wrung out in the form of precipitation or more widely wrung out in the form of cloud cover, and that plus the fact that humidities and dew points are going to be climbing over the next 24 to 48 hours probably is going to translate into a kind of a couple of more clouds than sun types of day. Certainly nothing I don't think comparing to what we had today or yesterday or Monday in terms of you know bright skies in the afternoon. I don't really see that, and it also could turn out to be cooler by 4, 5, maybe as much as 8 degrees over what we or under what we had today. Many spots, New York City got to 79. Up here, it got to 82, and I know north, it really steamed up. It really got hot.
Yeah, it was another day where they set a record at Scott Briller pointing out to me that they set a record at Mount Washington today, got to 66
Wow.
up near the top, and close to 90 down near the bottom.
Well, it was hot up there.
It was hot. That it was. Okay, let me get that window back up here, and this is what the Hurricane Center's. Whoops. Oh, don't tell me I lost the darn window. Where'd it go?
By the way, in terms of Bertha,
Uh,
the names come, every 6 years they recycle. And I can remember it was a Saturday. I was working at News 12 Long Island on a Saturday in 1996. I don't have the date in front of me, but I remember distinctly it was Bertha. And Bertha came northward and really drenched us on Saturday morning. By Saturday afternoon, Bertha was gone, the sun was out, and everything was nice and dry. But I think we picked up something like 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 inches when Bertha hit us in 1996.
yeah.
Obviously, after what happened today, they're not going to be retiring Bertha's name. So we'll be
No,
looking
we'll
we'll
see it. We'll see it again in 6 years.
in 2026.
Yeah, there's the rainfall forecast from the hurricane. So they really didn't go overly generous here with 1 to 2 and some patchy 2 to 4 inch rain. Since this thing is moving along, it's not stalling out. So that's a good thing. And there'll probably be some locally higher amounts in some of the mountaintops in western Virginia, where you wind up with 4 to 6 inches out of this. But that should be that. And now we can just kind of roll along to our own issues. Here's the radar this evening, and you can pretty plainly see the signature here is obvious. The identity on the radar is still rather impressive. It's just kind of this comma that's lifting up northward. There's a band of storms that sticks out, that runs down to just southwest of Wilmington. You see it there. It's like this little tail that's sort of hanging out to the southeast. That's probably one leftover band that's still in play. And that, again, you see the rains mostly lifting northward now into western Virginia and West Virginia. Meanwhile, we've got some hefty weather going on in parts of Alabama where there's a little bit of severe weather risk. And there's also severe weather risk back in Texas today. We're going to take a look at that with SPC. But here's that radar view as we shift over. And you can see some big cells in eastern Alabama now. Also some big cells forming in central Mississippi and some in southeast Texas. And there's a really interesting looking complex to the west of that area that's now moving through Houston and Galveston, well west, and that area is moving southeast. There's some big boomers in that one, and I think that rolls into SPC's enhanced risk area that they have for today in that part of Texas. 2 working severe thunderstorm watches at the moment as of 7:12 Eastern Time. Always remember, if you're watching this on a replay, weather.gov to get the latest weather information. And we have that marginal risk in southeast Louisiana, parts of Mississippi and Alabama. Also, a small area of marginal risk in coastal South Carolina and southwest North Carolina. Also, a small area of marginal risk, Joe, in northern Maine. It looks like some rather strong storms that just moved through parts of northern Maine. I'm going to take a look at that and go back to the radar. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, right up there in the corner. I don't know if you can get it. Let me see if I can make sure you see it on the screen there. But looks like some rather strong cells pass not too far from Caribou and moving eastward into New Brunswick. So that's your marginal risk. You don't see marginal risk in northern Maine all that often.
Yeah, I'm just looking here at the temperatures that occurred over northern New York and parts of New England. 94 today in Burlington, Vermont, and 94 at Messina, which is just a stone's throw from the Canadian border. 97, according to Tim Beltman. Thank you, Tim. 97 in Montreal.
Oh my.
And this goes along with that record of 66 at the top or the summit of Mount Washington. I think Mount Washington is 6,300 feet above sea level, higher than the 850 millibar level.
Well,
So
I got the high temperature map up on the screen now, Joe. It was it was hot. I mean, look at this. Like you said, what was it 90? What did you say in Burlington? Burlington was what?
94 in Burlington.
Yeah, Mount Pelier was 91. There were a couple of 96s in the northernmost county of New Hampshire. Uh, you don't see that too often. And in, I guess that's the northwest county of Vermont, it was a 97. That's crazy. And then you had temperatures in the upper 80s and low 90s. Oh, look at this, 95. What city is that? Boys I'm sorry, Seboeis, Seboeis River
Sabah?
near Shin Pond got to 95.
Ah,
Let's see, what's the 81? Frenchville, Northern Aroostook Regional Airport at 81. St. John's River at Dickey got to 90. Foxbrook at 91. Trying to find which one of these is Caribou. That wasn't it. Soucey, Maine, 85. 88 in Caribou, double eights in Caribou, and downstate, not too far from Augusta, in Freedom, Maine, it was 90. Augusta got to 88. 92 in East Waterford, Maine.
Ah,
And not too, was it not too many weeks ago they had snow on the ground?
exactly.
That's
I
got to
hope
be
those
torturous.
melt.
Upstate New York, Joe, up in north central New York, upper 80s and low 90s, 91 in Utica, 90 in Syracuse, 88 in Rochester, 88 in Buffalo. You know, they full sun and no wind off the ocean and very little, if any, low clouds in the morning. So you get full sun from start to finish. This is how it cooks up there. And of course, if you get a west wind, you get downslope from the mountains. It's just a perfect recipe for heat. And meanwhile, we were like a lot cooler, as you said, mostly mid 70s to low 80s. In fact, it's kind of odd to look at a map when you're seeing temperatures down in Northeast Virginia and Maryland in the low 80s, and then you look up well to the north and you're seeing mid 90s up in northern New England. Doesn't happen too often.
No, it doesn't. And people go to those regions that we're looking at in the summertime to escape the heat, or as your dear friend Ethel Mertz would say, have a nice, hot, sticky summer.
Yes, exactly. Oh, good God. All right, so back to let's go to full U.S. satellite view here, so you can see Bertha on the far eastern end of this uh, area of clouds moving into North Carolina, and of course you see the rotation around the upper low that continues back over. It looks like it's sitting over Arkansas and Oklahoma, and you're seeing those severe thunderstorms firing up this evening on the southern end of that down through Texas, in southeast Texas, and then that big blow up behind it, and then those other storms in Mississippi and Alabama. All of that rotating around that upper low, which is going to be opening up and moving east. Meanwhile, out in the west, we've got some clouds and looks like maybe a few scattered showers and storms up in parts of the northern plains. The southwest in California just dry. Let's see how hot it is there right at the moment, because they've got all this excessive heat nonsense going on over there. So let's take a look.
You really do? Well, actually, it's, and whatever you find will probably put whatever we just found in parts of northern New England to shame. But
Well, let's see. Ooh, some really juicy numbers out here. 106 in Casa Grande, Arizona.
there you go.
LA is only 86. Let me see if I can get add some numbers here. No, that's not going to work. Let's go back wide. Now it's trying. Let's see if I can add. Go to 2 times. No, it's not going to let me because I'm not tight enough. There we go. 2 times. All right, lots of numbers here, Joe. 111. Rice Valley, California.
That was Ralph's temperature when Norton took it with the match.
Right.
It's
Uh,
111.
Ford Dry Lake. I imagine that's a lake that's dry, and somebody drove a Ford through it. 111 there in California. Daggett Barstow Airport, 108. They got some interesting named towns out here. Democrat, Democrat, California, 100. 102 in Bakersfield. But meanwhile, you get down to the coast at Santa Barbara, it's a nice tepid 66. Oxnard is 73 for the high so far. Now,
Yeah.
it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon there, so they should have reached their peak intensity. So the heat is playing out in the corners, in the northeast corner of the U.S. and in the southwest corner of the U.S. Flash flood watch is up tonight, folks, where you got Bertha rolling through North Carolina into southwestern Virginia. No surprise there. You see the excessive heat warnings that are up for southern Arizona, all the way up even into northern California. And of course, you got those 2 severe thunderstorm watches up in parts of Texas. And you still have a couple of counties in southeast Florida under flash flood watches left over from all the rains of the last couple of days, and still a few scattered showers going on down there. WPC, the latest surface plot, we've got the 18Z. Let's see if the 21Z is out. Usually it comes out during showtime, and it is there. And there's you see the surface low plotted up there by the folks at WPC, just to the northeast of Columbia, South Carolina, and moving northward. Analyzes a 1008 low, TD Bertha 34.4 and 80.3. And of course, we still have this high that's now out in the Atlantic. The pressure pattern across the Northeast still pretty weak. And with the isobars through upstate New York going from west to east with those westerly winds, the dew points upstate weren't too bad. I mean, they were mostly in the upper 50s, but I'm seeing a few spots that dew points up in the low 60s. So that's got to be somewhat uncomfortable. 90 with a dew point of 65. I'm not sure what city that might be. It looks like it might be Glens Falls. I'm not sure. But most of the areas in western New York had temperatures in the mid 80s with dew points mid 50s to around 60, which that's not too unreasonable.
No,
In the
it's
middle of
not.
July, it's actually quite welcoming when we get it.
Right, right. But I tell you, what a weird month. Snow early, heat late,
Oh, it's been crazy. Two tropical
two
storms,
tropical
severe
storms.
weather up the yin yang. It goes on and on. There's your rainfall.
And speaking of possible severe weather, guess who's in a marginal zone for Friday?
We are.
We
We're
are.
going to show that in a moment. So, WPC on their rainfall forecast, of course, you see the rains, 7-day rainfalls here, folks. So remember, some of it's back end loaded, some of it's front end loaded. For us, it really kind of emphasizes what's going to be happening for Friday night. So the rainfall that's being indicated is generally under a half an inch or less. So at least we know that this cold front, which now looks it's like it's going to move through here and get through here early enough in the day on Saturday, so that I don't think it'll be too bad. There's like another lagging little frontal line that, like a dew point line that it comes through in the afternoon, and sometimes you could get an isolated shower or storm with that. But I'm not too worried here about the weekend, especially for Sunday.
No, it looks like if this weekend we were discussing this at the end of the show yesterday, you, Bill, and myself. It looks now to me like what we're looking at is shower and maybe leftover thunderstorm activity early Saturday, and by I'd say early to mid afternoon, enough of a push of dry air will move in, break the clouds up, the sun will come out, and looks like later Saturday looks pretty good. Sunday looks beautiful, and Monday looks just downright cool for
Yeah,
the
Monday's going to be a relatively chilly day for this time of year, but
yeah,
highs probably not getting out of the 60s.
right.
It'll feel good. So here's your upper low that is down in Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas, and you've got this shortwave trough that is swinging out of Canada, and of course we've got this upper high that's well off southeast of Cape Cod as the primary drivers here in the upper air pattern. That upper low is going to disappear. The northern trough swings on through. Part of it goes through. You get a little arm that goes through on Friday, and then the stronger part of the trough comes through Saturday into Sunday. This is going to bring down this what Joe just described. You got this really cool flow from well up into northern Canada, and then it runs southeast across Lake Winnipeg and into the mid-Atlantic states. So that brings down that cool air. Meanwhile, you got a strong trough off the west coast and a ridge that builds up into the Rockies, but doesn't build all the way up. That trough lifts out. Then it looks like a little bit of ridging coming into the east for later next week. Although there is troughing off the east coast that hangs around. So that might keep things from getting too warm. It looks like it'll probably get very warm to hot in the southeastern part of the U.S. for sure. But how far north that warm air gets remains to be seen, because we're kind of still, if you'll notice, folks, we're still kind of on the edge of the westerly winds here, the westerlies, the northwesterly winds in the upper atmosphere. So it'll keep things dry, but it won't be able to get hot in a setup like that, or it shouldn't be able to get hot. Meanwhile, I just want to take a look. We've been talking about the tropics, the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, and the possibilities that we could see lower than normal pressures here, and the GFS still has this. The European basically takes. We've got this Pacific tropical system that's going to develop over the weekend. And the GFS keeps wanting to kind of lift that up north. And if you notice the precip pattern, folks, over the Caribbean and the Yucatan Peninsula and over Central America, it's like this spire, this gyre that just turns. And on this particular run, you do have some development in the Southwest Caribbean, but it doesn't really lift it up northward. The other runs are still trying to take it in all sorts of directions into the Gulf of Mexico. The latest GFS run sort of leaves everything down there and then eventually kicks something out over Cuba and out into the Bahamas. Again, this is all out beyond the 10-day time frame. So there's still there's not really a whole lot of value here with regards to anything that would inspire confidence as far as forecasting is concerned. We're just going to continue to sort of watch that area and see what comes of it. And in the meantime, we can. Let me just show everybody the risk area. I forgot. So here we go. This is for us for Friday, folks. You got SPC with this large area of marginal risk from upstate New York all the way down into west central Virginia and northeastern West Virginia. The eastern flank makes it from about Albany to I don't know. That's probably western Orange County, the northwestern counties of New Jersey. Kind of just straddles that down into Delaware and down south of Washington D.C. and Baltimore. Joe, looking at this for Friday, I'm not, you know, the trough, if the trough were deeper and a little bit further to the south, I might be more inclined to maybe that we might wind up seeing a small area of slight risk in there when we get closer. I'm not so sure though. It's not to me. It doesn't look like the most dynamic setup in the world with regards to severe weather.
It's coming at the wrong time. I think the main batch of severe weather for us will come in the overnight hours of Friday night. Not to say that something will cook up to strong to severe during the afternoon and may actually hold on to that strength for a while into the evening hours, but overnight is when we're expecting to see that activity peak for our area, and there may still be a few lingering showers and boomers early on Saturday as that cold front slowly but surely works its way off to the east. But then I think by Saturday afternoon, and this is what I was questioning yesterday, you and Bill. I was saying, you think something might sprout later in the day on Saturday, even though the front is past us. But it looks today like there's going to be enough dry air coming in to preclude that. Start a nice trend toward improving weather. And Sunday, as I said, looks like a seasonably cool day and an unseasonably cool day on Monday. Joe, on the European, I saw the 532 or 533 thickness over New York City
Wow.
Monday morning.
Wow,
Wasn't
that's
close
cool.
to June.
That's cool. I'm just looking at the 700 millibar here for Friday night. We're looking at trying to look at the jet streaks at that level, and there's a pretty strong belt of winds in western New York and western Pennsylvania Friday evening, but most of that goes up into upstate north central New York and into western Vermont. There are a few scattered jet streaks in Pennsylvania. Those kind of disappear as we go through the night. Again, the overall flavor of the trough, if you look at it, it actually gets flatter over time because the second trough that's coming through sort of overwhelms it. So I'm not overly enthused by the prospects of severe weather here for Friday night. They got the marginal risk, which would suggest that there could be some isolated severe thunderstorms, and I think that's fair. I don't know that we'll have to deal with anything more than a marginal risk.
Well, we'll see whether or not they bump it up to something higher. Maybe put us in the slight risk category on Friday, but we'll see what happens. But it does look like a little rough weather possibly for Friday late into Friday night, maybe early Saturday, and then things look a lot nicer here for the rest of the upcoming first week. No, it's not going to be the first weekend of June. That's
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 the
the
last weekend of May.
last weekend of May. All right.
So by the way, the the flight launch, Elon Musk will have to wait another day. They canceled it today.
They're going to wait until Saturday, and actually, there's a chance now because of the delay, and the fact that we may have clear weather Saturday evening. There's a chance we might actually be able to see the capsule with the two astronauts heading toward the space station, moving across the sky on Saturday evening. I've got to get more information about that before I actually come right out and give a time. And of course, it could just as well be postponed again on Saturday. But if it looks like we may have a chance at seeing it, uh, I'll let everybody know here on this platform either tomorrow or on Friday.
All right. So let's do a little Briller Jeopardy. You ready?
Yes, sir.
So, what was the highest and lowest temperature recorded in June in Central Park?
The highest and lowest temperature ever recorded. Now, didn't we go? Oh no, that was May.
Right,
You told me the story about the 99-degree day, right?
right.
The highest temperature ever in the month of June. Well, for some reason, I don't think we actually ever hit 100 in June. I know we did it in July at Central Park. I'll say I'll say the highest temperature 98 and the lowest temperature 43.
Well, close on the lowest temperature, 44 on June 1st, 1945.
Right.
And on June 27th, 1966, it hit 101.
Well, there you go. And 1966, as we talked about yesterday, an extremely hot 4th of July. I don't know. I forgot what the temperature was on the 4th of July in '66 at Central Park was, but I know it hit 107 at LaGuardia. So it must have been something about that year, 1966.
Yeah. Well, as you know, things like to repeat when if you pop a couple of 100-degree readings in June, there's a fairly good chance that you're going to pop them again in either July or August.
Right.
All right. So the other one is on the Flintstones. We've got two questions.
The
How
Flint.
old? Yeah. How old was Fred?
They actually mentioned a year or an age.
Apparently.
Oh well, since uh, well, Wilma had Pebbles, so we know that she's probably in her early and mid 30s. Maybe Fred actually married. I'll say 38.
41.
41.
Yes.
Okay.
How many episodes did the Great Gazoo appear in on the Flintstones?
Oh, all right. Well, I remember seeing on YouTube, Harvey Korman talked about the number of times that he appeared. He said it was, and I don't think Harvey Korman knew the exact number, but he said something like 14,
Yeah, 13.
13. Okay.
13.
By the
So,
way, tomorrow on MeTV at 6 o'clock, you'll be able to see the very last original Flintstone episode, followed immediately at 6:30 by the very first
first.
Flintstone episode.
All right. Well, I'll DVR it.
Yeah, the
And
Barney.
and yesterday morning on Perry Mason, Aunt B, who we usually spends a lot of her time in Mayberry, uh, apparently made a stop into a Perry Mason episode.
Really
But
for
this is in season one, so this was before the Andy Griffith series.
right,
Right.
right,
She didn't
and
really, she plays a very small role. She didn't really. Her niece was accused of the murder. She was the aunt. She happened to show up just in time to wake her up after she had been poisoned with sleeping pills.
oh,
So she showed up at the nick of time at 1:30 in the morning.
you realize that Ricky Ricardo and Lucy Ricardo were in the same television universe as Aunt B and Andy and Barney, and you know how
Well, they were Desilu Productions.
well, they were Desilu Productions, but you could tie them all in together because Danny Thomas, who played Danny Williams on his show
Yes.
Daddy, were friends with Lucy and Ricky, but also it was Danny Thomas who, in the pilot for the Andy Griffith Show, I wasn't even a pilot. It was Andy Griffith made an appearance in Make Room for Daddy when he pulled over Danny Thomas and actually threw Danny Thomas in jail. And it went over so well that they actually built a series about Andy Griffith out of
out of
that.
that. And Danny Thomas and Marjorie Lord made an appearance. They were in the one of the 1 hour Lucy Desi comedy hours.
Right.
But
I re-
was that before Danny Thomas had his series, or was the series running at the same time?
I think the series was running at the same time. I remember
Okay.
that episode. That was the one where Lucy, toward the end of that episode, got so upset with Marjorie Lord because Marjorie Lord never lost her temper, never blew her stack. And I remember Lucy saying, "Oh, you and your sickening sweetness! You and and Marjorie Lord took like this big handful of snow and rubbed it in Lucy's face.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen that episode in 100 years. I have to go back and look at it.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so let's call it a night because it's so, other than the fact that we had this 5 minute tropical storm, there really isn't too much happening. So let's leave it at that. Everybody, see you tomorrow at the usual time, 7 o'clock Eastern, and have a great night. I have not much else to say.